Day 49th. Today, we are in the 49th space of the I Ching matrix, under the control of the 17th law of physical position. Our flower of life, today, is again two-colored. But today it is between the green and light blue rays. This is the space of unity, of our knowledge and dreams. The main knowledge that I am transmitting to you here is connected, first of all, with the fact that we create landmarks for ourselves in the world around us. This is, first of all, necessary for our self-confidence. This is necessary for our conscious and fearless presence everywhere, where our attention is at any given moment of our life. Now, those of you who have more or less understood the essence and meaning of drawing a matrix of 37 flowers of life, consisting of 19 spaces, can, finding yourself in complete solitude and impenetrable darkness, begin to repeat the entire path described here, with your consciousness completely calmly. And thus, you will be able, first of all, to create for yourself, with your own efforts, a shell of absolute safety. And secondly, you will be able to quite calmly pull yourself out into the light of day, from any underworld, wherever chance or circumstances may have thrown you. If you are imbued with the idea that all possible landscapes of any worlds, both in heaven and on earth, as well as heaven and earth themselves, are described by 8 trigrams of the mutual positions of 3 minds, then, strictly speaking, you will see where you are on the I Ching matrix, which determines the architecture of the entire universe. And it will not be difficult for you to figure out the question, where should I go? In order to get where you need to go. The more landmarks you see, hear, feel and recognize, the calmer and more confident your movement will be. Therefore, I tirelessly throw you more and more new points of view on the possibility of orientation. After all, we are hunters. And strictly speaking, in life we walk through a field of gray, colorless flowers of life. Now, you even know the architecture of these objects. And if your goal is the desire to color and enliven them with the presence of your attention, then your life will be filled not only with meaning, security and happiness, but also with the inspiring beauty of feeling your divinity. So, we, each of us, are hunters. We could call ourselves pathfinders, only in that half of our journey through the I Ching matrix, where we formed and structured our own inner world. Because, then we followed the lotus feet of the intersections of the circles of our points of view on the connection with the meanings of words, naming the physical laws of the universe. Now, we are simply hunters for the beauty, breadth, joy and comfort of our lives. Yesterday, in the story about the location of the goldfish, I already mentioned the 49th space of the I Ching matrix, in which we are today. On Yang Yin it sounds like ya. E, ya, e. Its coordinates are B6. This is the intersection of the horizon of the sun and the heavenly waterfall of living water. In the system of things that we are considering here, the sun, as I hope you agree, is an obvious representative of the image of fire. On day 47, I gave you a description of the trigram of the image of fire. Like everything on the I Ching matrix, fire is a flat thing. Because it is simply a picture of 2 solid and 1 broken line. The text describing this image is, strictly speaking, also flat. Although both lines and letters can be placed in volume, the flat essence of anything in the universe of the 3 minds will not change from this. Fire, wind, water, thunder, reservoir, mountain, sky and earth are flat things. Their essence is determined by the mutual arrangement of the 3 minds at the moment of their inclusion or deactivation. The author of Srimad Bhagavatam talks about the 3 worlds created by God. So, all the dramatizations of the relationships of the 3 minds in the planetary system of the first world are created by themselves, by a simple, cyclical order of listing the 8 trigrams. In the trigram heaven, all 3 minds were included in the process of being. On earth, all 3 minds were switched off to rest. Then came the thunder of the inclusion of the somatic mind. Then the water of the inclusion of the reactive mind. Then the mountain of the inclusion of the analytical mind. Then the wind of the property showdowns of the analytical and reactive minds. Then the fire of the coupling of the claims of the analytical mind and the clarity of understanding of its responsibilities by the somatic mind in the matter of providing nutrition to all the minds of consciousness and not just itself. And finally, when the well-fed and contented analytical mind switched off to rest from righteous deeds for the benefit of society, it was time for the somatic and reactive minds to bathe in the reservoir from the joy of solving all the problems that the hungry analytical mind had created for them. And when they began to rejoice in their happiness too loudly, the analytical mind woke up. The reservoir dried up. Everyone had to go to heaven. And a new cycle of existence began. The second world is boiled in a cauldron or stitched or intertwined on the I Ching matrix. On this matrix, consciousness has already laid out trigrams on horizontals and verticals. And it has already designated social roles for its minds, so that they have something to entertain themselves within their spare time for a longer period of time. This is how the houses of the Master of Heaven, the Spear of Kion, and the Mistress of the Earth, the Goose Kuni, appeared. Kion lives on the North Star and determines the north of the world. Kun lives in the south. Their verticals are the verticals of the parents of the world. These verticals are designated by Latin letters because they stand at the beginning of the Latin alphabet. But the meaning in them is embedded in the Russian-speaking consciousness. So A is the author of all the scripts, of all the plays and dramatizations, of the relationships, of all the participants in the world, and Ha is the mistress of all the props of these plays. The next verticals are B and G, where the armies of heaven and earth live, the verticals of the reservoir, pool of joy, the heavenly waterfall of living water, and the vertical of the western mountain range. And it is western, because it begins in the sky and the sun sets into it at the end of its day. Then come the verticals C and F, the verticals of the heavenly luminary of the sun and the favorites of the earth. Then come the verticals D and E, the verticals of the God of heaven and earth, thunder and lightning, from which the entire universe trembles, and the kings of heaven and earth, the winds, from Jiao Chu in heaven to Guan on earth. Onomastics, from the ancient Greek, the art of giving names, is a section of linguistics that studies proper names, onyms, and considers people with the sound E in their names, Ellen, Evaniv, Elisiv, Eremav, Egarav, etc., as those who love power with all their hearts and in all the simplicity of their souls. Strictly speaking, the conversation about landscape begins in this world, because only here are the horizons prescribed. 1 Earth, 2 Eastern Mountain Range, because the sun begins its path over the earth from the east, 3 Sea, 4 Forests, 5 Thunder and lightning. The heavenly sun moves over the earth, along the 6th horizon. The celestial river of living water flows along the 7th horizon. And finally, the 8th horizon is heaven. The idea of a three-dimensional world was born in consciousness, when it realized itself as the sovereign self, the real actor of power, determining the fate of the worlds of minds at its disposal. Then, consciousness, in its own understanding, ceased to be a powerless and voiceless slave, whose life depends on tyrants, who are unable and unwilling to negotiate with each other. Then, consciousness, in its own understanding, became the will of God. And the illusionary effects of the mirrors of all the volumes of the world became the guarantor of the life of consciousness itself. From this moment of the existence of consciousness begins the history of the elements as architectural formations of the three-dimensional world. Platonic solids 5 regular three-dimensional polygons are, first of all, contracts that determine the absolute and unconditional equality of mutual relations of the three minds, already known to us: somatic, analytical, and reactive. That is why the tetrahedron, 4 faces of which are regular triangles, is the body of the element of fire. Each of its 3 planes belongs to one representative of this Holy Trinity. And the fourth one opposes their unity. And this is the plane of consciousness. Well, that's it. For today, I think we will finish getting acquainted with the architecture of the volumetric world. You have something to watch in today's series of lucid dreams. And now, I return your attention to coloring the outer edges of today's flower, brown and pink. We need this so that we can clearly and easily see the beauty of change in the picture of our world. Excellent! The day has taken place.